Hey, welcome back to another, not a weekly recap this week because Montreal did not play last week, but we talk about the Ab Nation podcast tonight with our Coach Francis directly from the beautiful country of Thailand on amazing great Sunday night, February 16, 2025. Hopefully, an amazing great weekend. Are you ready to talk about the Four Nation tournament tonight? Of course, the big game between the Team USA, Team Canada, and we're going to talk about this. Don't forget the next two show is going to be about this tournament tomorrow at 1 o'clock p.m. Team Canada play against Team Finland, and then at 8 o'clock, Team USA play Team Sweden. So I'm going to do both a game play by play with reactions. So you can follow me, and of course, if you follow me on my X account. I give you all the information about the Montreal Canadiens prospect. Even Dimitrov written on the ice tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. And if you want to follow me on my X account, it's going to be my nickname is about the Cold Friendship 10X or the Ab Nation. Very easy to find me on that X account. So a show weekly recap without them. It's impossible. They are back in the house with some kind of snow around them. We're going to be interesting to hear what they talk about the snowstorm in Canada. Of course, sit at home in the caveman. I'm talking about Mr. Enortap, and sit somewhere somehow in Nova Scotia. Is sit talking about the Montreal Canadiens and the four face-off, the Four Nation face-off. Mr. Devin is back in the house tonight.
Hello, Coach. Hello, Devin. Enough
Hello,
snow for you?
Enortap, Coach. Yes, just now we have snow covered in ice. It's freezing rain all day. Yeah, we're getting a little bit of everything. Mother Nature is having her way with us right now, and it's not fun. I wish it was just snow, then we could actually shovel it. But now it's got an inch of ice on top of it, so I don't know what to do.
Mr. Enortap, snow, what's going on?
Yeah, well, the temperature hasn't really dipped too much, so we don't have the issue with the ice yet. But yeah, we got about close to 40 centimeters over the weekend, and this was third time I was out shoveling the snow today, so looks like it's finally slowly coming to an end, but we'll see.
Good for you, Mr. Enortap, for your cardio, right? You don't have to go to the gym. You can do this. Pick it up, all the kind of snow over there. So I think that's good for you. Everything like that. Welcome, everybody. Thanks to be a part of the show tonight. Hopefully, an amazing good weekend, like I mentioned to you. And this happening between
Uh-oh.
Team USA and Team Canada. I think they have a couple of uppercut and punch left and right. And that's what we're going to talk about this tonight, of course, at the show. And before we start, we welcome everybody. And first of all, le moderator Luciano Graziano is in the house. Welcome back. RJ Calabro, news and update. Very quiet for RJ, honestly. He said.
Hey, there was curling on today.
I think he's right now. He's watching the racetrack in Albany, New York, right there. But we'll see what happening for RJ Calabro. Thanks to be a part of the show. Talk about the Laval Rocket win today 5-2. Great point, RJ. We're going to talk about this a bit later. So glad to have you aboard, Mr. RJ. Abination knocked the door tonight. Welcome back, Abination. Martin Besnet, de retour avec nous ce soir. Martin Besnet de Waterloo, I believe. So hopefully you're doing well, Mr. Martin Besnet. Luc Laforcin from Lange Gardien. Don't have to snow. Well, he said, look, Mr. Enortap, he does nothing with the snow. He said, you know what? I'm going to wait in April when the snow be gone, and then I can go out. I
That's
don't
it.
have to go nowhere. So I'm retired. So why to be nervous about that? Why not to stay home, wait what happening about this? Neil, back in the house. Neil Monkip is in the house. Welcome back. Thanks for being part of the show tonight. We have a PLW knocked the door tonight. Welcome back, PLW. Already set up his bid for tomorrow, Monday. Maybe he's at work. He's the president holidays weekend in USA. So people say, well, you have a game Monday. Well, first of all, the tournament turned to be now in Boston, and it's a off day in USA tomorrow. It's the president weekend. So That's happening about that. That's the weekend where every young players in the USA play tournament left and right around the country. Big tournament in Phoenix, Mr. Enortap, during that weekend in Minnesota, where they are the biggest tournament, and one in Boston. So if you want to know what's going on, I can tell you what's going on about that. Colombia, South America is in the house tonight by SCR. Long time, Mr. 5051. Hopefully doing well. Colombia, where exactly? Medellin or somewhere else? We'll see happening. Mr. 5051. Run with Kings, moderator of the Hockey National Show. Welcome back, Run with the Kings is in the house tonight. Welcome back. Willie Snyder from Denver. Mr. Enortap is in the house tonight. WWE. AK from Alberta. He should have a lot of snow over there in Alberta for that one over there. Anybody wanting to take a shovel and clean my place? Please go ahead. Here we go. PW looking for someone. I don't know if RG can do that, but we'll see. Kovalev or Kevalev is in the house tonight. I love Stomp. I mean, as a Canadian about that one over there. Welcome back. Blizzard Montreal 40 to 45 back to back in Montreal. So that is a total of 65. I don't know where you put the snow in Montreal downtown. During that moment for sure. Gary Cornoyer. Oh, Gary Cornoyer said, I'm not sure if I like the snow like that tomorrow morning with the UPS driver with a truck. I don't know what you're going to do. But expect all the people, customer UPS, to be a little bit late delivery tomorrow. Overnight could be a little bit problem for Gary Conway tomorrow. So we said that take a time about that. LDP is in the house from Newfoundland. They should have some snow over there, Mr. Enortap and Devin over there. They should have a couple of snow. And Newfoundland. And Mr. Enortap is back in the house. Bob Ultraman is in the house. Welcome back. For a long time we didn't see you. Robert knocked the door also tonight. Mr. ODR is in the house. Welcome back. Thank for Gary also is in the house. So we have the double Gary. Is everybody in the house? Thanks a lot to be a part of the show tonight. Welcome everyone. And hopefully you're going to sit at home in the couch watching all the three talking about what's going on. And the hockey world, of course, and we talk about the Four Nations. First of all, we're going to talk about something what happening. Four Nation review of USA, Canada, with Finland, Sweden. And you're going to go all the way with that both game today. And before we move on with other news for Four Nation, and it's only a week, we'll talk about the Montreal Canadiens and prospect today. Talk about Montreal Canadiens. Preview the game next week. They play one game against Ottawa Senator. And we're going to talk about the clash at the end, Mr. Senator. We have 6 questions tonight about your prediction. No, maybe not prediction. Well, I said, Devin, you want to talk a little bit more about spending. So I said, not prediction, only one prediction for the clash tonight. So, Mr. Enortap, USA, Canada, your turn with Devin. Let's go move on with that. Finland, Sweden, we'll talk a little bit later about those games. So, Mr. Enortap, you are the first one talking about that game happening yesterday.
What? There was a hockey game on last night? Oh, man. Must have missed that. I don't know, Coach. It was one heck of a game, right? Like the one thing you like about international play, especially when there's a rivalry going on, you get to see the action. We did. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't anticipate it beginning the way it did in the first 9 seconds. But it's just sort of an indication of the fact that both teams are coming in very emotionally charged. And, once they got that off their chest, well, I think we saw a great exhibition of hockey played by both sides. I didn't think it was lopsided one way or the other. Of course, there were areas that you could improve your game, especially if you were Canada. I thought there were some areas there that they'll have to sort of brush up on. But overall, it was an entertaining game, and could have easily gone either way if with a little bit of luck.
Luck for that one, Devin.
Yeah, it was a really close game, as you say, Enortap. I think it was exciting. I don't think we've had hockey like that in a long time, and I'm not just talking about the game, but just like the anticipation before the game. Everywhere I went yesterday in the afternoon, people were talking about what their plans. It was like the Super Bowl, right? What are your plans for the game tonight? Where are you watching? And people were inviting each other over to each other's places to come and watch the game, and so there was a ton of anticipation for the game, and I think the game delivered. Right? It was a great hockey game. I probably have a bit of a different opinion than a lot of people about the fights at the beginning. I just found them to be kind of unnecessary. I don't think they really. I mean, they were entertaining. Don't get me wrong, and I'm sure they did a lot to increase the atmosphere at the Bell Center and to get the crowd kind of fired up a little bit. But I don't really think they had that much of an impact on the game. Quite frankly, they were staged. Um, Both of the Kachuk brothers picked guys who they didn't really have much chance of losing a fight to, which I think is part of their MO. They like to pick who they fight. They don't like to fight guys who have any real chance of giving them much of a fight back. But I thought that Hagel and drawing
Matthew.
blank, Hagel and Matthew, yeah, yeah, did it. I thought they both handled themselves well, and they answered the bell, and that was probably the key to me, was that those two guys were both overmatched against the two Kachuk brothers. But they stood their own, right? If they both had their faces caved in, then it probably would have given the U.S. some momentum going into the game. Both of those fights were probably a draw, and it was just kind of 10 seconds of craziness, and then we got to watch some real hockey. And the first 10 minutes of the hockey game was incredible. That goal from Connor McDavid was an amazing goal, and the rest of the game, like you say. Enortap was pretty much a push. Both teams playing really, really well. I felt like the Americans' defense did a really good job of stifling the Canadians' top players. They couldn't get off, right? They couldn't get their flow going. McKinnon, McDavid, you were waiting for them to sort of get on a roll where they were kind of like rushing, and it just never happened. So it was a great game. I enjoyed watching it. I thought the fights at the beginning were kind of unnecessary. I don't think they really had much of an impact on the game itself. But it does give the media something to talk about, and it'll probably give us something to talk about here today. And I think that's probably what a lot of fans are actually talking about now, which is unfortunate because I think the rest of the game was pretty special. So I think the final, if it turns out to be what looks like it might be, another rematch between Canada and U.S. In Boston, it should be exciting. It should be a good one.
You won't see any fights.
First of all, this
No.
the standing is USC 6 point, and then the three other team at 2 point, 2 point, 2 point. If Canada win tomorrow or Finland win tomorrow and regular time, but this is over for Sweden. So that winner of that game are going to play USC Thursday night.
Yeah.
If one of the two teams win in overtime, but Sweden have to beat USC in regular time to jumping over Finland or Canada to play against Team USC. So it'll be interesting to follow this. So I think, Finland or Canada have everything in their hands to figure out and to go all the way to the final. So the game will be at 1 o'clock p.m. Monday afternoon. You can follow this here at the Hockey Nation Show. We're going to do the play-by-play with reaction. This is what the great, and I said this at the beginning. This is going to be intense. This is going to be the great hockey. This is going to be when you represent your country. It's another prestige. This is another pride to wear that jersey. And I have no doubt in my mind, this is going to be an excellent idea, a great event for the hockey fans in the hockey world. And that's happening. Unfortunately, we wish you had more country like Russia or the Czech or something like that. But it is what it is. There are only 14. We cannot, we can talk about the format, the formula, everything like that. But this was amazing. And this, the time where the politics play a role behind the door, and you have a couple of, the boo, everything like that, make it this bigger left and right. But at the end of the day, people in USC watching the game, and the reason behind that, they want to become the number one in hockey. The Kachuk are on mission. The team USC is on mission, and the Canada have no answer right now. This is dominated by Team USA. The way they play, the structure, the way they shut down the opponent team by the cap control, and the way the performance they do for the since begin that tournament. They just continue to try to go all around. This is a bulldozer team right now on an mission. It's going to be hard for Finland, Sweden, or Canada to beat Team USA, I believe, until to the end. And it's getting bigger and bigger. And that's the reason the people, the hockey fans, watching more that game again, Team Canada and Team USA. And we have to go all the way 30 years to see a kind of excitement as a hockey fans to see
Intensity.
that game. Yes, it was really intense, and you go there. And the first at the beginning of this game, you can see the team USA want to make a statement to say, you know what, we're coming here to show to you. Now, this was an international hockey game guided by the IIHF. You cannot fight because if you fight, the rule is you
That's
get
right.
out of the game.
It's
So
on
they took
the next
advantage of
game.
that, right? And to make this happen. The statement of Kachuk was they was pissed off by the reaction of the crowd during the national anthem. I don't want to go deep about that, but that's what the statement. That's the reason they go that direction. They try to make something there. That's not showing the momentum, but I think they want to prove we're coming here to play intense. The first 10 minutes, not only them, body check after body check. I can make McEnvoy, I can make David twice on the board. You can see on the under the side, Parenko behind the net hit. It was just excellent. It was great. You can, if you're hockey fans, to see that you have to be excited about this. This is what we're looking for, and not to see Daniel Sprong and Michael Pesada, and I can go all the way like that in NHL. This is a high hockey level with talent players, with skilled players, and the pace of this game, the speed of this game is unbelievable. Uh, Trudadi said this is the fastest game I never see since I play in NHL when he played against the team Sweden. And Sweden, unfortunately for them, they lost both game in overtime. And for Finland, they found a way to beat Sweden. So it's a bit of revenge between Sweden and Finland. You know, we talk about rivalry, but this is a big between Sweden and Finland. So I think for me, this is great. This is good for hockey compared to see an all-star game where you shoot puck on the beach and you see something. It's just blew my mind. So this is what hopefully that will repeat year after year. We know next year is going to be the Olympics, so that will be better to see that kind of tournament next season, 2026. They expect to come back with those kind of formula. I think that at the end of the day, in after the event, it's not the player winning; it's the fans are winning to see that kind of hockey like that happening for the last couple of days between four country. Like I said, we wish you had more time and better country, be a part of that. I think you see an Ovechkin and Vasilevsky and Kucherov part of that tournament. I think they'll be both bigger. By the end of the day, this is what they are all working. And this is the first time you do it. They maybe make some change in the future. They do some testing. But again, this for me, it's unbelievable as hockey fans. And, I have to give credit for how the Team USA shut down Team Canada. Part of cap control, they cut the speed of the game. After only the goal that McDavid. After that, they really take care about this. I think a short tournament like this, you have to make some kind of adjustment on the fly, period per period. And you have to give credit for Mike Sullivan, John Tortorella behind the bench about that. John Cooper tried to do the best behind the bench, but honestly, the offensive of Canada is not there right now. I think the chemistry is not there between McKinnon, McDavid, Crosby, and Max Stone. We expect more for that. But I have to give credit for the performance of Team USA. On the flip side, it was a really great game between Team Sweden and Team Finland. This game where it was 3-3 all the way to the overtime, and then Finland beat Team Sweden. As well as the game, we got a chance the goalie, by the way. And then Kinnan is looking, from nowhere, is going to be the starter against Team Canada, by the way, tomorrow. So we'll see if he can beat Team Canada. But again, he get that W for Team Finland. I think that game was also entertaining, and that's for me. I'm excited about that tournament. I don't know why the fans does not like to be a part of that or does not accept that kind of hockey to see every night, night after night, to see the best of the best on the ice. You can ask more. Yes, you can talk about the, it's like remind us when you lose, you look about the team roster. You look about how they play the game, why they make those kind of decisions, everything like that. It's not easy to make the best team and to try to get that. We talk about the Tampa Bay line or whatever it is. John Cooper tried to bring Brendan Point at the top line at the end of the game of the third period. USA did not play with Matthew Kachuk. He's going to be out, by the way. Against them Sweden tomorrow. But I don't know. I would like to hear from both of you. How excited are you as the hockey fans to see those kind of games?
Well, let me ask you guys a question first before we. So if Canada wins in overtime against Finland tomorrow, does the U.S. throw the game against Sweden and lose in regulation? They don't play Canada in the final.
I'm
So
sorry
if
again?
Canada wins it in over, if Canada wins in overtime, they're still in.
Not
No, if
Europe.
Canada wins in overtime, but Sweden wins in regulation, then Sweden goes to the
Oh,
final, right?
Gotcha.
So I'm funny. I'm being funny, but it just if Canada beats, because Canada plays first, if Canada beats Finland in overtime, technically U.S. could throw the game against Sweden and lose in regulation time, and then it would be U.S. and Sweden in the final, and Canada wouldn't make it to the final. It'd be an interesting way to do, to be an FU, I guess, to Canada a little bit. But anyways, just interesting.
Yeah. My answer to
Yeah.
N26 about that. No, I think for all the people, welcome everybody. Jose Duarte, Mr. Top is in the house, moderator. Jose Duarte, long
Hey,
time. Hopefully, doing
Jose.
well. Mr. Jose Duarte. Zeb Lecav is in the house. We have Mac Elliott in the house. Billy, knock the door. Thanks for all the likes. If you don't mind, it'd be great. Steven is also in the house about that. For the end, for the reshoot situation, guys, the IIHF have a meeting 2 weeks ago. One ex-NHL player was supposed to be at the meeting. He did not go. He was on the Zoom, everything like that, and they did not accept Richard to come back at the World Junior Championship, right now. They have another meeting. It's coming in 2025. I think it's September. What do you want to reevaluate about that? I think that's if he's going to leave, and I cannot give you a little bit more. This is coming on my head. I read a couple of articles on the match RU, whatever it is, and they're going to reevaluate the participation of Team Russia. Don't be surprised that they're going to let them play in the next 2 years at the Olympics or other events around the world. I think that will be my expectation for what we heard between the lines on the IIHF. But I think it will be better for all the fans to look about that in the future. So we'll see what happening about this. I tried to pick it up a couple of people in the chat. Again, just like I said, this is going to be interesting tomorrow night, tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night to see what could happen between Sweden, USA. And honestly, Mr. Enortap and Devin, the game is really tomorrow afternoon. That'll give you a little bit more an indication what it looked like, the standing at the end for that. So I don't know Barkov is rolled out. I know he's an injury, but I don't know he's going to be rolled out for the Team US, Team Finland. And never put Finland out of the picture to any tournament. They always find a way to be played very well. Those kind of tournament, Team Finland about that. So that my last question about Four Nation for you on that one. What do you like so far for that tournament? One thing I want to mention about this also, the NHL makes some kind of testing right now. The commercial are longer and the intermission is shorter. That's the one testing to do that. They produce more camera on the ice. foot on the top and on the like a football, a drone, whatever they call it, the camera over the players. They have camera beside the
Yeah.
bench. They have camera around, so they use a little bit more like Amazon Prime, but they use more cameras. So you have a little bit more. The ESPN put some kind of line at the bottom. It was a little bit more upset the fans during the on the social media because you cannot see the play at the bottom if the puck hit on the board. So they was complaining about that. So you have a couple of things like that testing. But overall, what do you like so far for that tournament in our top?
Well, the part that's not surprising is the level of intensity by all four teams, right? Like right from the beginning, you knew there was very little to pick between any of the four teams. Like you can make arguments that one team has a better defense, one team has the better goaltending, but in the end, it's a one win game, and that's what we're seeing here. It's a bit disturbing from the perspective that you're seeing. A lot of politics entering into the equation, and I think that sort of belittles the spectacle itself of hockey in this case. I would like not to see any of that politics there, but I understand the dynamics of it and what's going on around the world. It is, of course, you would like to see more countries involved as well. That's always the ultimate, to have always the best of the best in all situations. But you can't. One thing you can't do is complain about the quality of the hockey. I think that we're seeing the quality coming through, even where there's deficiencies in some teams. They manage to compensate for it with the system that they're playing, and specifically Finland, who, like I said before, were decimated with injuries on defense, and a lot of people thought that they would, the other three teams would walk all over them, and they haven't. And I don't anticipate that'll happen tomorrow as well with Canada. It'll be another tough game for them to play, but I think they'll be motivated, and Finland is as well. It's going to be exciting. The last thing I'll say is, I know there was a lot of conversation yesterday, and it's inevitable. Whatever social media or platform you go on, people are talking about change of arms between Canada as the ultimate hockey power, and now it's the USA. We're talking about one game. This thing is not over by a long shot, and it's not just about this year. You look at what the situation with Canada is. They're talented a country that produces excellent hockey players, as many other countries have done. The level of competition has come to an equal basis, absolutely. But to say based on one game that the WWE belt has changed hands in different forms is, I think, a little bit crazy to say at this point.
Yeah,
David?
I mean, I agree with all of that. I think you're right. First of all, that the best part of this is the hockey, right? The hockey has been spectacular, and I think that's what's turned everybody. There were a lot of people, there were a lot of naysayers coming into this tournament, right? It's a fake tournament. It's made up. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a precursor to the Olympics. All these things that everybody was saying coming into this tournament, or a year ago when the tournament was first announced, everybody was kind of poo-pooing it. Oh, Russia won't be there. It's not the real thing. It's not a real best on best. But the quality of the play and the intensity that the players have brought to the games has sort of turned all of that around. And so, at the end of the day, as you say, Enortap, you can't complain about the quality of the game that's being put on the ice. And that's, I think, what do you like so far? That's first and foremost, is just the entertainment value of the game and the skill level that's being put on the ice. And to get back to your comments about the belt changing hands, and the Americans now being the preeminent country in hockey, and it's one game. Not only is it one game, it's one game that was basically a tie, right? Like it's not like they came out and took the belt. It was if this were, what they always say in boxing, you can't, you have to beat the champ. You just sort of have a draw against the champ. Like, I mean, that's basically what this was. And and even if the Americans are at that level now, that I think that's good for hockey. It'll push Canada hopefully
Clearly.
to improve. It'll make Canada, it'll give something Canada to fight for. If Canada has been a little bit complacent about its spot in the the international hockey world, then maybe this will give it a bit of a kick in the pants to sort of figure that out. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But some of the specifics that I like about the tournament are, and I know there are issues with it, and I guess, and I agree with the issues, so I'm kind of only half-heartedly in favor. But the 3-point system, I think, is something that could be adopted by the NHL. I get that it sort of wreaks havoc with historical records and things like that, as far as best teams of all time and what have you. It just sort of throws everything into. But again, I think the idea of having 3 points for a regulation, 2 points for an overtime win, and so on. I think that's there's value in bringing that. And as Coach pointed out, I think there's also any time there's an event like this, you give the NHL or whatever league it is, you give them an opportunity to be creative with things like the cameras, and you give them an opportunity to be creative with some of the way the game is presented to the fan, and I've liked some of that, right? The cameraman coming onto the ice after a goal is scored and getting the close-ups after after the goal is scored and things like that. I know that probably isn't a big deal, but it does make, certainly for the casual fan especially, it does make the product more entertaining. And the different camera angles, like Coach talked about, I think all of those things are kind of neat, and I like when you have an event like this, that it does give them the opportunity to experiment with certain things, and even the things that don't work, like you're talking about, like the thing on the bottom of the screen with ESPN that appears to not be that popular, but at least they tried it, right? And now you get to know whether it works or not, and the commentary, and doing the longer breaks, the longer, all of this stuff are things that allows the league to improve itself and find out what works and what doesn't work. So to me, that's interesting and fun to watch. But again, at the end of the day, the reality is that it's the game on the ice. If the game on the ice wasn't entertaining, nobody would care about this tournament. And it has been, and it's not just the USA. The Finland Sweden game yesterday was a spectacular game. Like, if anybody didn't watch that game, go back and watch a replay. That was an unbelievable game to watch. And to suggest that those two teams are sort of like secondary to this tournament is crazy, because they've both brought the big game, and they've brought fantastic players, and they're both playing really, really good hockey. So I've enjoyed every part of it. And I'll agree that I'll admit that I was a little bit skeptical coming into it. But it's been great hockey to watch, and I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Long overdue.
I was Mr. Enortap and Devin. I was get out of the black menu. It was about 3:26 a.m. in the morning, and I was walking on the street, and then I heard noise. So what the heck is going on, right? Usually it's a soccer game. So I walk, and then I watch. I believe I have 100 people at the bar. Like 4 o'clock in the morning, just a bar like that, that's not normal. So I look at the screen, like a giant screen. It was the game Finland versus Sweden. And it was 3-3. I think it was 10 minutes to go remaining. I could be wrong on the time frame, right? It was maybe 3-3 at some point at the third period. I said, oh, I could stay here a little bit longer. So I sit on the balcony at the bar, Mr. Enortap. I was not in the front. I was on the balcony at the bar in the back of that. I did not know who was the people, right? Is it Finland? Is it Sweden? And everything had a big save. They was excited, everything, but I did not know exactly. And then they go into overtime. And now it's like, one more, one more, one more. So he bring more in the back, and the people in the guy, like the girl was happy as she was making money. Usually that bar is closed. Maybe at that time, I don't know what's going on. So finally, the goal. Wow. 80% the build and the bar step up like crazy and stand up like, cheer for the team Finland, everything like that. So we'll see the reaction when you come from another country, like me from Canada, and then you watch those reaction about that. So it was fun to see the Finland to win that game, and like you said, it was a pretty good game between both.
It was.
And we'll see what happening for them. It's sad for Sweden. Honestly, they work hard and they get out early with 2 points on the two big game they play, and they should maybe get better. But at the end, it was fun to see the reaction of the people. So for me, honestly, I don't like the 90-second break. The break of the commercials too long. The intermission should be back like normal. That's the only thing I would say to you. I don't like the ESPN on the bottom, like the third stuff. I don't like it. I like the camera. I really like the format of the 3-2-1. I know the NHL will not do that. I like the 10-minute overtime, on my opinion, and I think it's good. I'm not sure it would be acceptable in NHL, but I think for me, for entertaining that kind of tournament, I think it's fun to see that. To see the same player come back, and I don't know. I think it was really good about that. I like so far the pace of the game, the speed of the game, the play of the game, the intensity of the game, the physicality of the game, and everything go around. And the only league I don't like is the politics around that. It's sad. It maybe turned this a little bit not, you know, not on the show
Circus.
called we do here, but on the social media, guys, it's ridiculous. And if you only try to make a comments, whatever you said, you're going to get overcut all the time. So I don't do it that way on my social media. I sometimes I try to reply. I don't want to get there, but at the end, that's the only thing is a little bit negative for me around that. But it is what it is at the end, and that's this decision. But for me, I'm really excited so far. We still have tomorrow, and we still have the final um, Thursday, and I hope it would be Canada versus USA. I think it would be just bigger and better. And at the end of the day, it's not a matter who win at the end, right? The only thing is a little bit. Hopefully, Kelmaker will be back. I wish Quinn Hughes be there, like the best, the bigger, better, and that would give me maybe a couple of things for Team Canada, maybe to reevaluate their roster. And this is the preview of the Olympics, guys, next year. So I think for me as hockey fans, I'm very happy about the performance of what happening so far in that tournament. And now the tournament move on to Boston tomorrow, and we'll see about that. Four Nation Face Off preview: Canada versus Finland roster. Expect a change. Mr. Devin, I'm going to start with you about that. How you feel about the could happen on that tomorrow for Team Canada?
Yeah. The one thing I would point out about the Canadian roster, and you guys maybe know more than I do about this. Um, if Kale McCarr returns, can Thomas Harley stay in the lineup, or does he have to go? Like, could they sit Sanheim and keep Harley and McCarr in the lineup? Because if they can, that's what I think they probably should do. I thought Thomas Harley did a really good job last night. I thought
He
he
did.
played well, especially considering even putting the circumstances aside. I thought he played well, but if you add those circumstances to the entire situation, I thought he had a really, really good game. So again, I know there are some weird rules around replacements in this tournament. I saw like Thomas Harley couldn't go on the ice until Cale McCarr came off the ice at practice, and so on and so forth. But I think that Cale McCarr can come back and Thomas Harley can stay. But if that's not the case, then I guess that throws this all out of the. But for me, I would like to see both of those guys in the lineup. I think that Harley showed more than Sanheim last night, and I would like to see those guys together. Not on the same pairing, obviously, but I think they should both, or they both earned a spot on the roster. As far as the forwards go, again maybe you mix the lines up a little bit in the top six, but I don't see bringing Konechny. It's Konechny, I think, that sat out last night. Is it? Am I correct in that Konechny sat out last night?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I wouldn't bring him back into the lineup. I think that the the lineup looked fine. And the goalies, I know there's a lot of people that were calling for Binnington to be, to be replaced in the next game, perhaps. But again, I don't see that. Binnington, obviously, either of those goals you might have said he would have liked to have back. But again, I don't think he was the reason for them losing. Obviously, Hellebuck was the better goalie, but again, Hellebuck is the better goalie most time he plays. He's a pretty good goalie. So again, I don't see any need to change the goaltending. And like I said, maybe make a couple of changes, some small changes as far as the lines go on the forwards, but I keep them largely the same. And obviously, if Makar is ready to come back in the lineup, that's a huge bonus for Canada.
Yeah, yeah. With regards to the Harley situation, at the time he was deemed an emergency replacement, and it could only be for Makar coming into the game against the United States. Moving forward, I believe that they could still keep him on there, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But I do believe that they can still keep him on the roster, and he can come in at the next two games for sure. You know what? With the roster, the only thing I was a little bit disappointed until the third period. I thought that perhaps perhaps Cooper could have made a little bit more in-game adjustments. He did a little bit and mixed up the lines in the third period. I mean, I think we saw it was clear that having Marner on the top line there with McDavid wasn't working well. The chemistry between the two, and he made some adjustments there, but also having he had both Bennett and Marchand, who did not play very much at all. And given the way the game was progressing, you would have thought that those two kind of instigators would have had more time on the ice and sort of, complemented a line a little bit better because they needed to create some space. I thought the Americans did a great job in terms of clogging the middle up and not allowing anything coming straight down the middle. A lot of the shots Canada took were from the periphery. And so I don't see any changes in the forwards as much as maybe the line adjustments. And with the goaltending, at this stage, it's an absolutely imperative game for them to win, and to come in. As much as I like Aiden Hill, and I think maybe he should have started, I don't think we're going to see Binnington leave. I think they're going to go with for lack of a better expression, the devil that they know than the one that they don't know. In this case, they don't want to take that chance. Tending will remain the same. I think the defense, they don't have much choice. Like you said, Devin, I think Harley played a very good game considering that he didn't even practice with these guys um, during the course of the tournament. But one thing you clearly saw with the absence of Makar and Theodore is the fact that now they're pressed a little bit having puck carrier defensemen, and that really contributed to them being bottled up in their own zone quite a bit by the Americans, who were doing a great job of dumping the puck in and taking the body and just sort of imposing their will in that way. The defensemen that we have, for the most part, were that's not their brand really. So
Yeah,
there's not much they can do
they don't
about that.
they don't have the one man breakout anymore. They don't have the one man
No.
breakout anymore. Like, yeah,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Morrissey's not bad at it, and he can still kind of quarterback the power play a little bit. But yeah, I mean, he's not a Theodore, and he's definitely not a Makar.
That's a great comment.
and I mean, I think a big aspect of that too. Just sorry, Coach, real quickly. Like a lot of people are saying that the Americans losing Quinn Hughes and the Canadians losing Cale Makar kind of cancel each other out, and I agree with that to an extent. But there's also a difference between losing a player 2 or 3 days before the tournament and losing a player, right before the game, like an hour or two before the game, you realize that he's not going to be able to go. I think there's a difference there as far as preparation goes. So I think that Canada, if Makar isn't able to go tomorrow, then I think you'll see a better Canada because they'll have done more to prepare for his absence than they did in the U.S. game. So I think there's a difference there. Obviously, those two players are comparable, and in losing those players kind of cancel each other out in that sense. But again, the circumstances of losing those players is a little bit different.
Yeah, on defenseman, I'll be honest with you, I was a bit impressed by Maurici. I think Josh Maurici does a good job for them. Um, it's hard for Dowdy. You can see it's difficult for him. He tried, but the speed of the game maybe put him, and he's not in shape like he's supposed to be because of injury right there, right? So the hurting, the Ken McCall is really missing. 28 minutes per game he played, Ken McCall, 25 minutes and more at the counter, the type of the game. You cannot have any other player can pick it up his spot. It's not going to be easy for McCall. He may be the best defenseman of that tournament if you think about that. So it's a big piece of the puzzle for Team Canada without
Absolutely.
McCall. Now the goaltender Bennington, you know, soft goal, age game, but he make a big save at some point. But it will be interesting what they're going to do tomorrow. If they're going to go with Hill or they're going to keep Bennington. So you know what, we're going to go all the way with Bennington, only one goalie. That, honestly, that was figure out what could happen about that. But I think behind that roster, who could be in, who could be out, who would be, I think for me it's more about the chemistry we don't get from the top six over there. And I think for me, one thing they would have to know, I know they have to remove one of the top six there, but I think they have to bring Brendan Point and the top six over there and run that line. I think Point was maybe the best player on the ice against the USC. It was intense, it was fast, it was great opportunity. But unfortunately, again, the chemistry is not all there. I think Point play all the time with Kucherov. It could be a complementary with over there with something. I still not sure Max Stone, Crosby, and McKinnon. They change McKinnon, McDavid at the third period. But I think some point, I'm not sure about Max Stone on the top. I will remove Max Stone and put Brendan Point on the top right there and go from that. But it would be interesting what John Cooper is going to do against Team Finland. Team Finland is a shutdown team, right? With Ao, Rob Hens, Barkov. This is not a team you can say was going to be easy to play against them. They know what to do on the structure. It's a team play with chemistry, and they have a couple of players there. They do well. Their only question since the beginning has always been the questionable about the defensemen. But on my opinion, some defensemen step up on that team. Like I would say, Mikola, Mata play better. What they play usually, and the Team Canada, we said to you guys, the roster we don't talk about yet about the player are not there, right? The selection is from players versus the player are not there. They're making maybe it's fun, and I think Max Sheffley would be an impact for the Team Canada from the beginning over Cyril Lee, in my opinion, about that. I think you can go with other defensemen. Um, could be there over Sanheim, example, or Parenko, but it is what it is at the end to review the selection by the different GM, Angstrom, Brisebois, and I can go all the way like that. So if you're missing one specific players, I just mentioned Max Sheffley and Artap. Do you have any other players? I think Montreal, Team Canada could have, and you don't have to set over that player whether, but one player you think it would be better for Team Canada to have for that tournament, who it could be.
Well, Coach, we can make speculations, and obviously, very learned speculations in terms of who could have been there that would have done a better job than some of the players that are currently there, right? But unfortunately, I mean, the way they structured the team was to fit a particular. The players had to fit a particular role. I think they went heavy, obviously, with their top six, even though right now we're not seeing the kind of chemistry. I mean, we saw it a little bit in the first game with the Crosby line, and I thought that they played an outstanding game. But I mean, there's a lot of politics that comes into play too, in terms of who was selected. But for the most part, I thought they selected the bottom six for a particular role that they felt had to had to sort of counteract the opponents and players that they were going up against. That doesn't necessarily mean that they were the best bottom six that you could have gone with. I agree. Somebody like Shifley, who also plays a decent defensive-minded game as well, but can score, has size, and has that edge to him, would have definitely helped. We all know that Logan Thompson was sporting perhaps the best stats, for Canada over the last little while. So, why is he not there? Is it because there was a bit of a rift between some of the coaches and him? I don't know. I mean, we can go on and on with this kind of thing. Uh, I think that's something that for the future maybe they could look at when it comes to the Olympics. For now, they have to do the best possible job they can with the players that they have, and that's, I think, what the task at hand is.
David, you want to mention one player? I think one thing I will say to you, people talk in the chat. I think one more thing I didn't mention. I think I should mention. I think they they
Most of
they shoot the puck from the outside. Well, you don't crash. I didn't see a lot of play go to the crash the net. Sometimes you shoot the puck and nobody in front of the net.
Yeah, that's true. And somebody, it's surprising because somebody like a McKinnon likes to drive towards the net. But I mean, you got to give credit in that last game to the U.S. defense. I thought that they did a great job of just, containing the puck and containing the player, and that's what created the lack of opportunities in front of them. That all you have to do is obviously look at the shots on goal by both teams, and it's easy to see why those chances weren't there. I didn't have a look. Maybe Devin, you did, because I know you look into it quite often. I didn't look at the high danger opportunities by both teams for that game. But I bet you there probably wasn't a lot by either team.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, first of all, to answer your question, Canada actually had more high danger chances yesterday than the Americans did. The Americans had a higher quantity of possession and sort of shots towards the goal, but the Canadians had more shots on goal and scoring chances. So maybe higher quality but less quantity. So in that sense, it kind of evened out a little bit. But I think the comment I would like to make here is that it's the easiest thing to do when Team Canada loses, whether it's loses a tournament or loses a game, is to criticize the roster selection. And at the end of the day, the talent pool for Canada is very deep, right? And so there's always going to be guys that you can look back and second guess and say that guy should be there or that guy shouldn't be there. And the reality is, for me, I always hesitate to do that because I think roster building is more than just picking guys based on their statistical numbers. It's it's a philosophical thing. It's a philosophy. You're looking for players with a certain style. John Cooper was interviewed before. I don't know if it was before the tournament or during the tournament, but certainly before yesterday's game. And he was asked about what kind of players they were looking for, and they were looking for gamers and winners. Is the term that he used, right? And so he was looking for guys with experience, guys who'd won, guys who'd played in, Stanley Cup championships. And so, I think Canada has 15 Stanley Cup winners on their team, whereas none of the other teams have more than 3 or 4, I think is the number I saw. So again, it's very easy after the World Juniors to say that they brought the wrong guys in. It's very easy after a loss to the Americans to say this guy should be there, that guy should be there, and whatever. But at the end of the day, I really don't think that there's anybody on Team Canada that doesn't deserve a spot on that team. Yeah, you could say Mark Scheifele could be there. Yeah, you could say that Nick Suzuki should be there. Yeah, you could say that this guy should be there or that guy should be there. But again, that's a very easy thing to do, and I really hesitate to do that. Picking a roster isn't about just picking the 12 best, producing forwards. The guys who are, the top 12 scorers on your team. I think there's more to the selection process like that, as you pointed out, Enortap. You look for guys to fill specific roles and play especially when you're in a tournament, you look at your opponent and you look at a team like the United States, who's very strong and powerful offensively. You need guys who can match up with them, right? You need guys who can match up with the Kachuk brothers. You need guys who can match up with, certain types of players. So, the idea of just going out and bringing in, goal scoring machines and trying to outscore the other team, I don't think that's necessarily a recipe for success. So, for me, whether it works out or not, I really have a hard time kind of questioning roster selection process, because I think it is more than just that
Yeah,
easy, pick out your 12 best scorers, and you guys who
you're
are going to
absolutely.
shut down Austin Matthews.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Devin. And Coach, I mean, you'll remember. You can trace this back to any international play that Canada's been in. The team selection has always been questioned. You can go all the way back to '72, and people questioning, oh, why did Peter Mahovlich make it on that team and White make it on that team? I mean, there's reasons for it,
Well,
and
Anderson,
you can. Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. And so it's you can question it till the cows come home, and some make sense on paper, like as a Monday night quarterback, we can always say, well, this person would have done better than that person. The point of the matter
correct.
is,
And if they
I
win,
mean,
and if
go
they
ahead.
win, and if they win, all of that goes away. And if they lose, then
Yeah,
all that gets blown up and becomes the biggest thing in the world, right? Like, so again, everyone wonder, like, Paul Henderson. Why is Paul Henderson on Team Canada 1962? Like, he's not a big name, but they
yeah,
won the tournament and he scored the winning goal, and so nobody thinks about it again. But again, if they
yeah.
lose, then it becomes a big question, and all of a sudden the process, becomes becomes a big issue.
Yeah, and just to answer A2, yeah, of course, in '72, Team Canada did win that. But hey, this series isn't over yet either. So this could turn out to be a victory, and then what? Do we still say that some of the players were the wrong players? I mean, you have to put the brain trust is there that selected this team, and as you said, Devin, they did it for a reason. Who's going to back check most? Who's going to kill penalties? Who's going to bring a physical element to the game? And it's not like they're slouches. Like if you look at their production over the course of the last couple of years, they're all legit players.
And you're playing, and you're playing against good hockey teams. It's like, Canadians fans have this unreasonable expectation that we're the best in the world, and that we should be able to put a team together that just goes out and rolls over other teams, right? You forget that there's another team on the other side that that has a say in all of this, right? They're good too, right? And they're getting better. So yes, I agree that we're the best hockey country in the world, and we should be able to put together a team that wins every time. But those days are starting to move past us, and at the end of the day, those teams are that much closer to us now that they can certainly put up a fight. And if we don't put our best performance on the ice, they're going to make Canada pay now. It's not like the old days where we would go to a tournament and you play the first 4 or 5 games, you'd win 13-0, and then you'd have to play Russia or USA or whatever in the final semi. Like, it's a different world now, and you can't just send the biggest names of the guys that everybody's heard of to a tournament. You need to put a team together. And I mean, again, it correlates to the Montreal Canadiens and to the NHL as well, right? Roster building is a very complex thing, and it's not just about getting 12 guys who do the same or play the same role. You need guys who play different roles. And it's Canadians fans, Montreal Canadiens fans and Team Canada fans have sort of weird expectations when it comes to what their teams are should be able to accomplish.
Yeah, I think if you I listen to you guys every time like that, I think you have two things you have to remember, guys, is the how the staff at the up at the top, right? They decide how they're going to play the game. That's a big factor there. From that, they will say, okay, because we're going to play that game that way, we need players this way, and that's the reason they have those kind of players like Cyril Lee and and Jarvis and Angel. That remind us a bit what Team Canada did at World Junior Championship. What Dave Cameron decided to go with Baudouin and Gauthier, and so he go with that kind of direction. And at the end, the outcome was always to reflect on the decision, like anything else, right? At the end of the year, when you evaluate your team, you see what it looked like and what kind of decision you did well or you did not do well. And that's happening for the Team Canada. And we'll see happening the next couple of days for that. But we have to move on. We still have a show. We still have 1 hour burn right now. We have to move on with other things. We don't want to thank everybody to be a part of the show. Don't forget, please, to click on the like. We appreciate it a lot. We want to thank all the moderators, Ron, Jose, and of course, Luciano. We have a couple of people pop up. Alan, Rain, pop up a little bit late right there. So I appreciate that. And 26A2 Roy also part of the show right now. So I appreciate a lot what happening there. Let's move on with a couple of news around the Montreal Canadiens. If I can get this, we'll see happening. Montreal Canadiens announced David Rebacker is approximately 1 to 2 weeks to be part maybe of the Laval Rocket roster back on the ice. So the great news for the Laval Rocket because what? There are many injuries. The Rockets, the last couple of days, they lost, Gignac, Alex Stock, Arsenault, um, Lindstrom. I missed one more. So they have a five. The last game, not today, but the last game they played Wednesday, they have only 11 forward and 6 defensemen. I think Jacob or Ace, one of the two, is hurt also. So they call up for the Lions, Sivini, and then they call up Lake Hoff for they gave him a contract, um, a tryout contract to play with Laval Rocket, and they played yesterday. So good to hear that. The Laval Rocket won yesterday by the score today by the score 5-2. I went back to goal during the second period. The goaltender used a save percentage of .944 between the pipe. Jekai scored his 12 goal of the season. Farrell, Bariboulet, Roy at 2 points. Farrell is on fire. They have a really, really difficult year. For the last 5 weeks, Farrell may be one of the top best players for the Laval Rocket. I think he's 8-9 points the last 3 games or 4 games with the Laval Rocket. Roy, honestly, came back since 1 week now from his injury. He's looking better and better.
Yeah.
With that W, the Laval Rocket are on the top of the North Division, and they are number one, the winning percentage with the American Hockey League. With time, we're going to have some kind of players coming back around the Laval Rocket, but they play tomorrow, I believe, at 2 o'clock, and we'll see what's going to happen about that. Primo is going to be between the pipe for the Laval Rocket, so good performance overall for that. Laval Rocket. Let's move on to other things. I'm going to get a couple of subjects very soon. Montreal Canadiens prospect, Kapanen, Rover, Michael Edge, Fowler, Trop, Demidov, Kunishkov, and Harris. What they have in common? But they all performed during the week, honestly, for the Montreal Canadiens pipeline prospect. This is the beauty of Michael Edge. He carried the puck all the way to the end to score his 13th goal of the year, if I can recall it, for Michael Edge. With that goal, he was tied the game 2-2. This one is our friend Vincent Rover. Have a game of 2 goals for Vincent Rover. Score again, I believe, for him is a 14th goal of the season. This is a player is underrated inside of the pipeline for the Montreal Canadiens. Have a better year for the second year, and you can see have more confidence. He played more minutes this year in the NL League over there. And you can use his one-timer. This one, guys, is a game-winning goal on the shootout. Aurora is excellent on the shootout, by the way. Good hands for Aurora, and he put the puck between the pipe, between the leg for the 5-0. Aurora, another Montreal Canadian, 75 overall pick by the team by Rover this year and 2022. This one, guys, it was the goal for Sam Harris. Harris, another great prospect for the Montreal Canadiens. Harris, I believe that goal was also his 14th of the year. It was again North Dakota. I think this game it was Friday night at the Pioneer Arena in Denver. Like I said, Harris have a great year this season with the team at Denver. That one was an assist for Denver for Harris bring puck at the blue line and to score the goal for the defenseman for the keep at Denver. Have another goal to talk about this. I'm just waiting for the replay finisher on that goal for Sam Harris for the prospect. She's going to see the replay like 5 times in our tap, too many times, and the camera behind the net of the goaltender of the
Nice
team. I
shot.
want to see Torp. I don't know if we have the Torp on that one. On this one. This one,
The
guys, it
torpedo.
was Michael Edge an assist Friday night on the overtime goal. He's at the top of the play right there. Is a secondary assist. So um, that's happening for Michael. I don't have the top on that video, so I apologize for everybody. But a great week for the Tyler Top. Also scored a goal during the weekend for the team Vancouver Giants. Jacob Fuller, very interesting. The fact like possible Fuller going to sign a contract. I don't know if you heard about that the last 24 hours for Fuller, but we expect, I think it's this part right here. Fuller leave the NSA, joined the Montreal Canadiens in April. I believe Michael Edge is Sam Harris going to returning and the NSA for the upcoming year in 2025, 2026. But Fuller have a great year. I think he's now 52W in the last two seasons. He got his 20W of the season yesterday. Again, the team Massachusetts after he lost for the first time, the guys, in 2 years, back-to-back game the last Monday at the final against Boston University, and they lost Friday night again Massachusetts, I believe, 3-2, or yeah, it was 3-2, and then they won yesterday by the score 4-1. Fuller have an amazing, great year with the Boston College about that, and I want to bring to you guys because of that. I would like to guys to give me a little bit more your ranking for the Montreal Canadiens prospect, Mr. Enortap. And when I did that, guys, I put Claire there. Dimitar, Beck, Roy, Mayu, Rebecca, Fuller, Kapanen, Tobesh, Edge, and Ekstrom. Yes, I'm missing Jekai and everybody else. But if you want to give me maybe your top five or how you see the list over there, how it will be, Mr. Enortap.
Well, clearly your highest prospect there is Demidov from everything that we're seeing in terms of how he's been playing and the possibilities of what he can do to join Montreal next year. I would put Beck up there on that list as well. He's come up a couple times and he's really been he's fit in seamlessly with the team, and he's really gotten it down pat with Laval as well. Mayu, we've seen quite a bit of improvement as well in the last, I'd say, 2 to 3 weeks, probably the last month. I know he got off to a tougher start this year, but he's there. And wow, some real good ones there as well. I mean, Reinbacher, the expectations are there. I still think, obviously, I don't think it'll be with Montreal next year. It might be the year after with Reinbacher. I think he probably will need a year at Laval just to sort of, test prove that he's over the injury and that he's in sync with the team. I mean, Fowler. Um, I'm not overly surprised um, that he's moving up. Obviously, he doesn't have much left to prove at that level, so that's not a surprise. Hage, I think, will stay an extra year with Michigan. I think even though he's performed well, um, he still has to work a little bit more on his defensive game, and his skating is quite good actually, but there's always room for improvement there as well. In terms of joining Montreal, Engstrom's an interesting one as well. Like I think he could help Montreal maybe at some point next year. It might not be at the start. So it's very encouraging because you see pieces that can fit seamlessly into the Montreal lineup for next year. And those that we named are probably the 4 or 5 more prominent ones for me.
Yeah,
Devin?
I mean, so when I look at prospects, I look at sort of two things. One, I look at their ceiling, and two, I look at how close are they to being at the NHL level. I think Damidov obviously, I think, has to lead that list. He's obviously the most promising prospect. He looks like he's quite close to being an NHLer, and I think most people would believe that he will get a. There's a very good chance that he's playing with the Montreal Canadiens next year. I sort of temper my expectations a little bit when it comes to that. And so if you sort of balance the high the ceiling, the best that they'll be versus how close they are to the NHL, I think you then look at guys like Beck, who obviously doesn't have the same ceiling that a guy like Reinbacher or Fowler has, but he's obviously closer to being in the NHL. Um, Mayu, also another guy who, doesn't perhaps have the same ceiling that a Reinbacher has, but again, is a little bit closer to the NHL perhaps. So again, if I'm ranking those players based on all of that, I would probably say Demidov, Fowler, Reinbacher, Beck, and then Kapanen's another guy who, obviously doesn't have the crazy upside that some of the other guys have, but he's closer to being an NHL hockey player. Hage is a guy who, obviously has a really high upside, but isn't really that close to being in the NHL right now. So that's kind of the way I look at prospects is, how good can they possibly be if they play, or if they fully live up to their expectations, how good are they going to be? And then how far away are they from actually achieving that? So, I mean, in that sense, argue that Demidov and Beck are probably the two best guys, and Reinbacher as well, I suppose. So again, I'm probably not giving a very clear answer here, but if I'm ranking those guys, I would probably go Demidov, Reinbacher, Beck, Fowler, Hage. Well, Dobesh obviously has to be in there too. So, but yeah, I mean, those are all good prospects. I think every one of those guys on that list
It's
have a better
encouraging.
than 50-50 chance of playing in the NHL someday. Like, there's not one guy on that list that you would say it's unlikely that guy is going to be a contributing member of the Montreal Canadiens at some point in their career. A guy like Joshua Roy might be a guy who right now, you might not feel great about because he's kind of taken a step backwards this year. But at the same time, do you believe that he's never going to play in the NHL? I mean, I think we still believe that he'll play in the NHL. Engstrom might be, in that sense, Engstrom might be the outlier in that group as far as somebody who, probably has the longest shot to make it to the NHL just because of the numbers of the guys who are ahead of him in the pecking order. But again, that's a great list to have. I mean, any team in the NHL would be happy to have that list of prospects. I mean, I don't. I mean,
And
again,
it
there's a reason why
it
the Canadian
speaks
prospect pool.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
it speaks also to the assets that they have. If I mean, obviously, not all
Right.
of these will eventually be in a Montreal uniform. I hate to say it because you might have to package 1 or 2 of these players in order to uh, fill a position that they are desperately in need of, and or maybe with a player that will bring a little bit of experience. Because we're all talking about a very young team in Montreal, and these guys are adding more youth to it. But where's the veteran leadership? Where's the experience coming from? So maybe a couple of these players do get dealt from a position of strength for a player that fills a particular role and brings that dimension to Montreal, which allows them to move forward a little bit quicker.
Right. And I mean, to me, I like that leadership question because it's important. I know a lot of people will say, "Oh, you can't just have a team of young players." But again, some of those younger players are now becoming veterans, right? Like, when does Caden Gooley become a veteran player? Like, when does Caden Gooley become a guy who you can rely on in the sense of, he's no longer a young kid anymore? When does, um, when does Nick Suzuki become that? When does Cole Caulfield become that? When does Kirby Doc become that? When does Alex New? You know what I mean? So again, I get that, and that you can't just have young guys anymore. But eventually, guys like Dvorak and Armia and maybe Jake Evans, those guys are going to fall away. And then the question becomes: do you need to bring in a veteran presence to replace them, or can you replace that veteran presence with guys? Gooley's the best example for me because he's still a very young player. He's also very experienced now, right? He's got 150 games or so in the NHL. Am I right on that? He's no longer a kid that you need to protect, and when you put him on the ice, you need to make sure that he has a David Savard next to him or a Mike Matheson so that he doesn't get overwhelmed with the situation. He's now a guy who's been there and seen that. So yeah, I mean it's interesting, right? So again, with these players, yes, I agree that not every one of those guys is going to have a spot on the Montreal Canadiens someday. But I think it is in the Canadiens' best interest to give all of them an opportunity to show what they can do at the NHL level before they trade them, right? Like I don't like that's my issue is that I want to see what a guy has at the NHL level before they make a move. Like if they're going to trade Mayu, I'm okay with that because we've kind of seen a little bit what Mayu is about at the NHL level. But if they were to announce tomorrow that they were making a trade involving Michael Hage, I would be a little bit more concerned about that because we haven't really had an opportunity to test what Michael Hage can be at the highest level. I mean, does that make sense? Like I want to know what it is that the Canadiens are giving up before they actually give that player up.
For the people in the chat, so I did not stop. Here we go, my as prospect, guys. Dimitrov, number one. I'm talking about the a long term for the Montreal Canadiens. I will say to you, Jacob Fuller, number two. Michael Edge, number three for the Montreal Canadiens. I think they are all in about that, and I'm going to put David Rebacker, my number four, on that list over there. Now, after that, you have to pick up between Beck, Roy, Mayu, Kapanen, Tobesh, Engstrom. The following player I think would be right away with Montreal is going to be Owen Beck with Oliver Kapanen. At some point, I believe one or two will be traded by the Montreal Canadiens. I think they cannot sit together a long term. Maybe a short term, a long term, I don't see that. Mayu, with time, it will be with Montreal Canadiens. I still believe maybe not next year. Maybe it could be another year, in my opinion. Tobesh, it would be the backup until Montembeau will be there. And after that, Tobesh will be maybe out. Depends on further situation. And finally, Engstrom is really my wild card on that list over there. Engstrom, it may be over Mayu on that list. Right now, he's over Rebecca because Rebecca is not played yet. But Engstrom, I believe, he will be stuck in the left side of the Montreal Canadiens. I think he's going to be a good player in NHL if he's not with Montreal Canadiens. My disappointment is right now is Joshua Roy, where he fit. Can Joshua Roy become an Enortap and Devin? A player can adapt and accept what it takes to be a bottom six in NHL. This is what my biggest question about him. I don't think he can be a top six in NHL. And if he's not, with what he show right now, he need to figure out something else on his tools to stay in NHL. PK players, player most responsible, play great on defensive. A little bit like a Jake Evans when I said that. Now he said, I don't want, but the style of Jake Evan I'm talking about. And you already have Owen Beck, already have Kapanen. So I think for me, Joshua will be stuck inside of that pipeline around that. And we right now, if you look about that list for everyone in the chat, give me three players with sandpaper, with grits, with fiscality, and a four checker. And we don't have those kind of players right there.
Owen
So,
Beck.
Owen
right,
Beck.
right. So it's very difficult. So that's part of one thing we have. So we have to put like maybe a Jekai, maybe a Tyler Thorpe, a 6'5" forward. We don't know yet.
Luke
But
Tuck.
just give you a little bit, guys, to share it with you on the night like that, what a Montreal could look like in the future. And again, it's easy to say that because we are Montreal Canadiens said that. That's not said it will become that way. We have a development is not like this, and we don't expect everything go up, right? It's going to be a rock and roll, and then maybe whoop go down. That's part of the process. But if I'll be honest with you guys, if we get five of those players on the top 10 right there, that's going to be a really good thing for the Montreal Canadiens at long term. I think that would be
I agree.
really good. And we don't talk about Davidson, don't talk about Jekai. We don't talk about those kind of players could join the Montreal Canadiens at long
Luke
term.
Tuck.
We don't talk about Rivalry yet, and I can go the way like that. So I think it's pretty good to get that kind of exercise. If you want to add something before we move on in our tap, and after that, David.
No, I think we hit on quite a bit there. Like I said, it's encouraging to see that the pipeline is, rich from that perspective. But again, I just don't anticipate, especially with the defensive core that we currently have, which is relatively young. I mean, last year we were playing with five rookies, and this year it's also still they're still very young. I mean, when you look at the other ones that are trying to vie for a position, whether it's Engstrom, whether it's Mayu, whether it's Reinbacher, that space that has to be created, right? And so, how do you create that space? I see them. Somebody somewhere along the way has to be used as a bargaining chip, where you address maybe another position, but you have to be certain that whoever's coming in to replace the player that you're trading is ready to take on that position, right? And right now we're seeing it. Like, why are they even talking about trading for an experienced right-handed defenseman? Because that's where the weakness right now is. If eventually Mayu or Reinbacher more specifically can fit that role, because they show that they can, then we're set. But if not, they have to pivot and try something else.
David, was something else?
Yeah, just quickly. I mean, I kind of want to address the issue of the toughness and the grit issue. I mean, I think that the defense is well on its way. Obviously, Caden Gooley, Arbor Jackeye, they bring a ton of grit. David Reinbacher, I think, underestimated. Like that's he's low key a pretty tough kid to play against. He's got a mean streak, I think, him a little bit, and he's big and strong and physical. Maybe you do want to have a guy with a little bit more grit and physicality in your top six. The top six kind of projects to be Suzuki, Caulfield, Slavkovsky, Line, Doc, Demidov, maybe. Like in that group, there's not. I mean, obviously, Doc brings a little bit of grit if he's playing his game the way he's capable of, but I'm not overly concerned about the toughness and the physicality of the Montreal Canadiens. I think that they have the guys that they have the guys within their own organization to fill that role if they need to. So it's not as much of a concern to me, really. I think the defense is big and physical. Like I said, Gooley, Reinbacher. If you've got a defensive core with Gooley, Reinbacher, and Jack Guy on, I think you're in pretty good shape.
But they're forwards, Devin. That's my concern. I
Yeah, no,
I right
yeah,
now,
yeah,
and like I agree with you with the defensive core. I think they'll have size, they'll have grit, a bit of sandpaper to them. I think we'll be fine there. It's the forwards where I think we need to see some more size and players that play with that edge. Like an Owen Beck will definitely be an asset.
And Bet
But
brings that. You're
you
right.
know,
Yeah, I think Bet brings that for sure. And Heineman, I think, brings a little bit of that. I mean, maybe not sort of the fighting and whatever, but I mean, he's certainly not afraid to throw a body check. We've seen that from Heineman. Joshua was not really going to bring that, I don't think. Jake Evans doesn't bring that necessarily. If Josh Anderson sticks around for a little bit, and Brady Gallagher sticks around for a little bit, I think obviously those guys are going to be hard to move with the length of their contracts. So they're certainly not going to be going anywhere. I don't expect they'll be going anywhere anytime soon. So again, if you've got Anderson, Gallagher, Beck, and Heineman on your bottom six, then I think at least in the short term, I think you're doing okay.
All right, let's move on with the traded line. I want to give you a little bit more your prediction what could happen. So I'm going to ask you two questions about this really easy. Jake Evans, C or out? Devin.
I mean, honestly, Coach, I really have no idea. I really don't. To me, I don't really. I don't think it would end the world for me either way. Obviously, we're hearing the reports from guys like Pierre Lebrun, who doesn't always get it right, but we're hearing reports from him that they're very far apart and that they're not, the negotiations are going well. But again, everything that I see tells me that the Canadians would want to have Jake Evans on this team. And everything that I see and hear tells me that Jake Evans would want to be on this team. So again, I'm getting sort of conflicting reports. I mean, I'm not on the inside, so I don't know anything directly. I don't have any, communications with either side. So it's really hard for me to say. And to me, it comes down to whether or not the price is right. And if they can sign him for the right price, then I love that he's still a team. If he goes somewhere else and signs for $4.5 million, then again, good for him. So I really struggle with that. Like it's I would love to see him on the team. I think he would be a good player for this team at the right price. But again, if he leaves, I think we have. I think his replacement is available and exists within the organization, and they can they can replace him. So I like Jake Evans. I think he's a good hockey player, and I think the Canadians will probably be better with him on the team. But again, I don't think it's the end of the world if he goes somewhere else.
Enortap?
I th- yeah, I think there's a good relationship between Evans and Montreal. Obviously, he wants to stay. They want him, but it's at the end of the day, coach. It's a business, right? And you have a 4C uh, uh, player who, if and again, we're not in to know exactly how these dealings are going, but from all observations and what we're hearing, the latest I've heard is that he's looking for 5 years at $4 million, and if that's the case, he will be out for sure, 100%. I cannot see Montreal accommodating that. And like you, Devin, I like him very much. I think he's been very solid for Montreal, not just this year, but in the past. You hate to see him go, but this is all part of the part and parcel of the rebuild.
Good point about that. More, I would just add this. I think Owen Beck pushed Jake Evans out of the picture now. That's pretty much what I expect for the Montreal Canadiens. And the last one, guys, about Amir is Savard. Keep Amir Savard, one go, or both stay, or both trade in our top quickly.
It all depends on what you get in return, right? I don't think that they're. I think Savard's gone. I think Armia might be gone as well. I mean, I hate to say it because I don't see it right now. He's making 3.4, if I'm not mistaken, 3.45, something like that. I don't see him taking a cut to stay in Montreal, and I think that given his style and the fact that he comes up big in games and he offers so much more on the defensive end as well and on penalty kill, and he's got the size. I think there's some teams that are contending that would love to complement and add the depth that an Armia can bring. So I think they might both be gone.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, they might both be gone, and I think at the end of the day, it'll come down to whether or not there are other teams in the league that value those two guys greater than the Canadians do, right? Like if the Canadians, if there's a team out there that sees Yoel Armia as a guy who can help them on a playoff run, and they're willing to offer the right person in return for him, then they'll do that, and the Kings will have no choice but to let him go. Um, if they don't, then they won't, right? And again, it's going to be what does his market value look like? I think his market value going into the Four Nations face-off was pretty high. Obviously, it might be a little bit lower now after he struggled in the first game and was sat out for the second game. Coach, you and I had a long chat when it was just the two of us on a show about a month and a half ago about Savard and about how much he wants to stay in Montreal and how he likes it here, and he has kids and his family, and they all from his personal perspective, Montreal is a great place for him. But at the end of the day, if the Canadians can get the right return for him, I think he'll go. And then maybe he comes back and takes on a role within the organization afterwards. But again, very similar to Evans, I wouldn't have any issue with either of Imria and Savard staying with the team at the right price. I think they both can contribute to this team long term. Armia especially has turned things around, and we talked earlier about Joshua Roy, accepting a role different than the one maybe he viewed himself being in at some point in his career, and Armia has embraced that, and he's been very good at it. Apparently Arpin Basu spoke with Armia in the last couple of days and asked him about whether or not he has expressed an interest to the team about staying and wanting to stay, and he said yes. So, he obviously wants to stay here, and I think it's to his best interest to stay in Montreal because I think his best opportunities to succeed in the league are with Montreal. So again, it comes down to whether or not you can get him for the right price, and I think for both of those guys, the same thing applies. If somebody comes around and offers you a second round draft pick for David Savard, I think you take him, or you take the trade. But again, I really don't have any issue with any of those guys being traded, and I don't have any issue with any of those guys, staying on the team. So I know that's not a very satisfactory answer, but it's to me, I could go either way with any of those three guys: Evans, Armia, or Savard.
Yeah, follow that. I think Savard will stay. Amir is going to be with Fleury Panthers. That's my prediction about that. Um, Amir could stay with Montreal Canadiens, but he stay. Montreal will offer him only a contract at $2 million, and I'm not sure who can give him more at $2 million per year at Joel Amir. What, 33 years old next season anyway, 32. So I think that will be the situation for the Montreal Canadiens with those traded line. Let's move on with other subject, guys. Before we hit, I want to talk very quickly about that, if you don't mind. We always talk about the prospects, so I'm happy about that. Add by number before we do the clash, and then we close the show. Thank for all the people in the chat. Don't forget, please, to click on the like. A lot of great question about that one. Do you view Armia only as a four-liner and okay guy? Yes, Nicholas, and I feel like a PK guy, like Devin said. So now tap point number and Devin. I want you each one give me an idea. We talk about the team together. I don't want to talk about their performance as well, but I want to talk about the team together. If they progress or if they regress, and PLW will be happy for one stat at the beginning because it's all about data analytics. The CF percentage, this is shot attempt by course C. My target last year was 29. This year are 22nd. The change is a 2.2. And also, the top 15 in the nation made the playoff. To see some kind of improvement for the Montreal on the course C. And after I want to add something about that.
No, I think that speaks for itself, Coach. It's definitely an area of improvement, and to jump up 7 spots is quite good in 1 year.
Great point about that. David, you're not going to talk about this. I'm going to move on to the next thing so you can give us your comments about this because it's not always positive. So about that, so you can give us what happening. This is a high dangerous scoring chance for the Montreal Canadiens. They drop 0.3. It's not a big chance, but it drop also in the standing. And this is a chance and front the net. If I ask you, Devin, what you think is the problem for the Montreal Canadiens? Why we don't get enough high dangerous scoring chance?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing I would say is that there, talking about this entire season, we're including October and November with December and January, which are two very different sample sizes. So I think that's the first thing we have to keep in mind. Um, I really don't have an explanation as to why high danger chances would be different this year versus last year. Obviously Slavkovsky has struggled, and certainly in the second half of last year, he would have provided some of those high danger scoring chances, and that first line definitely in the second half of last season was more productive. So, um, I mean, essentially,
Yep.
this is a push if we're being honest. You can say it's a
Yeah.
regression, but essentially it's the same numbers. It's not really that much of a difference. Certainly hope that it would improve, but I don't have an explanation for this again, other than to say that I would expect that the
Devin,
numbers over December and January would be significantly better than either of these two numbers. But yeah.
Devin, you're right in that it's a push, and I agree with it. And as you can see, it's not a very good ranking. To me, it's size, right? They don't have the kind of personnel that can park themselves in front of the net and create opportunities in front of the net. That's why earlier, when we were talking about the composition and the prospects coming up, we said they've got to become a bigger team, a more solid, rugged team, and that's what we're seeing, and it's based on 2 years.
You're right
Yeah, and
about
one of
that.
the
I
one
think
of the
that
things
if you
I've
look,
noticed, Coach, you might have like a comment on this too. Is one of the things I've noticed about their offensive strategy is they've moved significantly away from um, from getting offense from their defense. I mean, obviously Lane Hudson is an exception, but the shots from the point and things like that, they've definitely changed their offensive strategy and their offensive structure away from that, and it's resulted in some different numbers and some different results as far as that's concerned. I mean, last year I think there was a lot more shooting from the point. Maybe that was resulting in tips and rebounds and whatever. I don't really have an explanation or an answer to that, and maybe you do, Coach. But again, I don't really have an explanation as to why the scoring chances from those high danger areas would be sort of stagnant this year to last year,
it's
other than
because
as Hendertap says, the size thing.
usually we give you an example, right? You have Zuski, Caulfield, and Sakaski. They play on the periphery. They don't play inside. They don't let a guy in front of the net to get like a bumper or something like that. I'll give you an example like there. And if you look about the stats, I have it right. All three are at the bottom six of the forward for the Montreal Canadiens. We talk about the best line, and they are there. Gallagher lead with Anderson about the high danger scoring chance. Why? Because Gallagher were easy in front of the net. How many breakaway Josh
Yeah,
Anderson has, right? And they are not
Yeah.
successful. So the number they are 46.1. That's something they need to be better to have some kind of chemistry on the top six and to drive to the net. So to give you why they are there, and after Devin, I will say to you, the lack of skill and the lack of talent yet. When you're going to have better players, you're going to get that number get better on the in front of the net because you have better chance of scoring chance everything like that. That's the reason where they're at right now. Let's move on for the next one. And this one guy is a chance of scoring. Montreal Canadiens are better, but it's still 27 in NHL. So they drop for the Montreal Canadiens. Again, Sat for the first time is not there. So this is another problem for the Montreal Canadiens. They have to have better chance and they have to get a better high danger scoring chance also at the same time. And that's another problem for the Montreal Canadiens. Back again is the lack of the lack of the skill, everything like that. Let's move on for the next one. We have two more guys. and I want to finish with Clash a little bit faster, but they give it a bit more. These guys tell you the truth what's going on with Montreal Canadiens. And this is the same percentage, maybe the GVSA for the goaltender, right? But look what they are last year, Montreal Canadiens, 9 in NHL. So last year, the goaltender, Jake Allen, Primo, and Montembeault make better save, and they save goal against compared last year, this year. This year, guys, are at the bottom in the NHL at minus 2.8. You said, well, it's not a big deal, 2.9, but we talk about save percentage. And the reason behind that is
Big.
honestly the Primo situation in our time at the beginning of the season. He's right now at 82.5. Montebo dropped his number this year compared last season. And only one is right now at 91.9 is Tobesh. So problem right there is honestly the Montreal Canadiens, the goaltender, does not save goal like it was last season. That's the reason the goal again is still struggling right there. I don't know if we want to add one more comments about this in our time. Devin, I'll give you the next one after that.
Yeah, we're not quite there, obviously, with our number one goalie. Like I said on numerous occasions, I personally, and that's my opinion, I don't think Montebo or Dobesh is our number one. I think that they'll be very comparable backups, but I think hopefully if things keep progressing, it's Fowler that will fit that role. And also you have to say that, you're dealing with a young defensive core that underwent a slightly different defensive structure this year, and until they get that system down pat, you're going to be giving up a lot of rebounds, and the goalies just aren't absorbing those rebounds. So it's going to create more high danger opportunities for the opposing team, and for the most part, they're scoring on those.
Good point about that. So, and I thought, Devin, I had another one for you, so I want to be sure you finish with this one. The next one, guys, is about the high dangerous coincidence on the and funny net for the Montreal Canadiens. Last year, Montreal Canadiens was 11. This year are 27. Maybe what Enortap said, but I will say to you, Devin, why? Because last year we just talked about the save percentage. It was at the 9, and this year they are 27, 32, and now on that in front of net, Montreal cannot stop the puck, and could be the weak of the defense, it could be the system, it could be the goaltender cannot make the save at the right time. What you feel about this, David?
Yeah, I think it's all of those things, Coach. I mean, I think it's it's the new system that they brought in and how much they struggled with it initially, and how it took them some time to get fully adapted to it. Again, like I said earlier, I would be interested to see what these numbers look like if looked at the period from Christmas time until today. I would expect that these numbers would be significantly better for Montreal than they are for the entirety of the season. October, November was a bit of a disaster when it came to their goaltending, and in particular, the opportunities and the scoring chances that they were giving up. We saw a number of blowout games where they lost, 8-2 and 9-2 and 7-1. There were a number of games in those first 2 months of the season where, these numbers didn't look good. So I think you're right, Coach. I mean, you bring up the new defensive system. You bring up the struggles that Caden Primo had before he was sent down to the American Hockey League. You bring up, the fact that Montembeault has maybe taken a bit of a step backwards from last year. So I think all of those things are factors. But again, I was willing to bet, a significant amount of money on the fact that if you looked at the numbers from December 25th until today, that the Canadiens' numbers would be, at least as high as that 83.2% high danger save percentage, and that they would probably be at least in the top 15 in the NHL. So I think those things are all factors, and Primo obviously struggled, and Montembeault regressed a little bit from last year. I mean, I thought he was had a really good year last year. So yeah, that's essentially my take on that.
well said, Devin. A lot of great stuff in the chat. PLW N26 showing a couple of comments there with Nicholas Francois Pitt. Pete Martin, welcome back in the house. By the way, thank for everybody. Don't forget, please, to click on the like. We're going to finish with a clash, Mr. Enortap. I know you're ready on that one, Mr. Enortap. You wait until the 9:30 about the clash, and we'll see what happening. So I'm going to start with Devin on that one, Mr. Enortap. So why not? And see. And the clash is absolutely or not at all. This is the only rule we have, and that'll be easy to get there. So, Mr. Devin, the biggest mistake by the Montreal Canadiens is it Kachuk over Denis Savard? I'm talking about the NHL draft a couple of years ago. Montreal select Kokanemi over Kachuk. In 1981, I believe, it was Doug Wickenheiser over Denis Savard. So the question today is that the impact of not get Brady Kachuk is bigger at Denis Savard if you go back 40 years ago. Absolutely, not at all.
So you're asking. I would say that picking the gap between Kachuk and Kotkaniemi is greater than the gap between Savard and Wickenheiser, because
The
Wickenheiser,
impact of those players.
right? Yeah. So Wickenheiser, I think, was still, he certainly never achieved the same level of play that Denis Savard did. I think he still was a pretty good player, whereas Kotkaniemi's been a bit of a bust. And frankly, I'm not a huge Brady Kachuk fan. So I will say that picking, I don't know what to, it's close. I will say that picking Wickenheiser over Savard was the bigger mistake than picking Kotkaniemi over Kachuk, I think. So I don't know how to express that in absolutely or not at all, but I will say that the bigger mistake
Not
was
at all.
picking.
You're saying not at all.
Denis Savard. Yeah, if Denis Savard had played his entire career as a Montreal Canadian, I think we would probably be looking at one of those. Obviously, I don't think he would be on the level with Guy Lafleur, but he would be sort of in that discussion.
Yeah, I agree. I think he would have definitely been in that stratosphere, and it's one of, I'd say, about anywhere between 3 to 5 mistakes that were made over the course of that, from that time onward, that Montreal has made that has set them back. And for me, the Savard one, overlooking him for Wickenheiser, was the biggest mistake. I mean, Savard went on and had a very illustrious Hall of Fame career, even though he came back to Montreal in his last year. He missed out on the opportunity. Montreal missed out on him, having him be, dynamic, just in the same vein that Guy Lafleur and many others were at the time. So I'm going to go with not at all as well.
Do you think Montreal win more Stanley Cup with Denis Savard?
Yes.
At the early
100%.
1995 with Bob Gainey and everything like that, I think it's still there.
Yeah, because I think the infrastructure was their coach, and Savard would have just complemented it and taken it to the next level. So I think you would have. I mean, nothing's 100% certain, obviously.
Of course.
Again, we're just speculating, but I would say Montreal would have had at least a couple more cups with Savard in the lineup.
And I think we don't forget to mention the trajectory of the career Guy Lafleur could be changed also.
That's right.
After that. So,
yes.
I think that would be something to consider about that. So, yes, about Savard on that one. But I think also the trajectory of the Montreal Canadiens rebuilding would be different with Brady Kachuk over Kokanemi at the NHL draft.
Sure.
It would be its fun decision, Devin, about what it would be after that for the Montreal Canadiens to have Kachuk. So I think this was one of my best questions, Mr. Enortap, and the class for the last couple of years.
The other one I would add in there that probably I mean, I still think Savard was probably the number one mistake, but just ahead of Kachuk in terms of being a mistake not doing would be what happened with Patrick Roy and Mario Tremblay. I think that set the Canadians back quite a bit as well.
Yeah, because now if you go that way, Denis Savard will be 25 years old, 27 years old when Patrick Roy show up on that one, whatever he won in 93. But you have to trade Christian Youth to get Denis Savard back with the Montreal Canadiens. So the history will be changed with that selection. So sometimes one selection could make an impact for a long time or long term. If you have a choice to take Sidney Crosby over Nathan McKinnon or Connor McDavid, Mr. Enortap, you take it absolutely or not at all?
Uh,
Now, I did this question for some, Mr. Enortap, before you answer. That question is for AK, by the way.
would I take Crosby over either
Yeah,
Nathan or Connor McDavid?
yeah. So you have a choice,
Wow,
on the board.
Like
it's
right
hard because
now
with
or in
Crosby, I think in terms of you have to look at it the whole career, right? I think the story with Crosby is more prominent. I mean, he's at the end of his career, so we've seen obviously what he's done and what he continues to do, and the history is there. I think the history with McKinnon and Connor McDavid isn't completely told here, right? Like I think they still have a great number of years before we know exactly what their ceiling becomes and how they cement their legacy down the road. If I had to speculate on this, I would say not at all. As much as I love Crosby, I think that McKinnon and McDavid both are generational players, just as Crosby is. But I think that when all is said and done, the numbers of either McKinnon or more so McDavid will be probably a little bit better than Crosby's.
So not at all.
Right.
I say absolutely. I mean, as far as pure offensive talent, I think that Nathan McKinnon and Connor McDavid obviously surpass Sidney Crosby. But as far as the impact on an entire organization, an entire franchise, an entire city, I don't think you can really. I don't think you can really outweigh or surpass what Sidney Crosby did for the Pittsburgh Penguins. How he made that organization better, how he made his teammates better, how he, the role that he played. Obviously, Nathan McKinnon's won a Stanley Cup. Connor McDavid may or may not win one. Crosby's won two. And I think, his role in carrying that team to a Stanley Cup, the role that he played, again, it's about making everybody around you better, not just, you being great. To me, just the entire impact that Sidney Crosby brings to a hockey organization and to the entire scenario uh, has not been surpassed by McKinnon or Connor McDavid, in my opinion.
Yet.
Yeah, good point about that. Honestly, a lot of great comments. A lot of great comments in the chat also to reason why Crosby, what he won, everything like that. Um, McDavid is very hard to pass over him, uh, but I think I would have to go with Crosby right now at this moment. And the next 10 years would tell us exactly what McDavid going to accomplish overall. That would give a little bit more the MVP between that. So I would go with absolutely on that one. So Devin, the best line at the World Champion at the Four Nation, Kachuk, and Jack Eichel.
Wow. So far, yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with that. They've been pretty good. Um, it's only been two games, and I don't know that they were that the Kachuk Eichel line was not necessarily dominant in yesterday's game against Canada, especially with Matthew Kachuk missing the last 10 or 12 minutes of the game with an injury. Could I give you a line that I thought has been better overall during the tournament? Probably not. So again, I'll say absolutely, maybe on the back of their victory over Finland, and maybe even the antics that they put on at the beginning of the Canada game, Matthew and Brady. But I don't know that it's a clear cut. They're definitely the best line in the tournament. Maybe there's a line from Sweden or Finland that's been better, but I'll say absolutely. But again, I don't know that it's a clear cut decision. I don't know that they're head and shoulders above the other line so far in the Four Nations face off.
That.
I think once they made the adjustment, Sullivan made the adjustment and put the brothers together, and you have somebody of Eichel's ability to set them up, and the Kachucks both can dig the puck out. I mean, I think right now they've shown that they're probably the best line to date, right? And the whole story is not told. I think it helps to have the familiarity that the brothers know each other very well and exactly. Uh, what to expect from each other. And Eichel really complements that. So I'll go with absolutely right now.
I agree with you. Absolutely. And after that, you keep Bennington all the way.
I don't think you have a choice.
Be
I think it'll
careful.
be
John
the.
Cooper is right down in the back. He's listening enough time. Just to be want
Yeah,
to be sure.
yeah. Look, I don't think Bennington has been horrible, um, but he has allowed in every game, the two games he's played, he has allowed one bad goal. And when you put together a series as such that has all stars, the difference between two teams, for the most part, will be the team that doesn't make mistakes or the goalie that stands on his head and steals the game for the team, right? And we haven't really seen that. Yes, he's made some big saves from time to time, especially in that overtime game against Sweden. I don't debate that, but the two goals that he's allowed, one in each game, have been very, very questionable, and you just can't do that at this level. So, is he going to go next game all the way? I'll say yes, only because of the structure of this tournament, unfortunately. I don't think that you can sit back and take a chance that Aiden Hill's going to come in and do the job better than he's doing, right? Again, it's not to say that the goalie's not better, Hill. It's just that you've gone this route. I think had they probably won against the U.S. coach, I think you would have seen Aiden Hill in the third game, and then based on that, they have a little bit more to make their decision. But at this stage, he hasn't hurt them enough for them to take him out.
I agree with everything. I agree with all of that. I think that you keep Binnington because at this point, I don't really have any choice. I don't think that Binnington has cost the Canadians anything so far in this tournament, and I think that he's any better or worse than the other two options that they have at the moment. I don't think that it would be any better to put Aiden Hill in right now, and I don't think it would be any worse. So again, you've committed to Binnington at this point, and I think that absent any real collapse from him, I think that you were going to keep him in for the entire tournament, and he hasn't collapsed. Obviously, like you say, Enortap, he's given up a couple of goals that he'd probably like to have back. But at the end of the day, I don't think he was a reason for their loss last night. Obviously, if he had stood on his head and just been ridiculous, then maybe they have pulled out a win against the Americans. But at this point, you've committed to him. You stick with him, And and again, I think you're completely right. If they had managed to beat the Americans, maybe they do put Aiden Hill in for the third game against Finland and see what he has, and that gives you more information to base a decision on. But at this stage, with what's happened so far, I think you've got to ride it out with Binnington. I don't think you really have any choice if you're the Canadian coaching staff.
My answer is like the general manager is Doug Angstrom.
Yeah, you're right.
But
Yeah,
honestly,
exactly.
if I have a choice right now, I go with Hill. I chant with Hill. I
Okay.
think the only thing I think about this, like if you're a hockey player right now, you see who is behind you. I think the confidence will be bigger with Hill over Bennington. I think that would be my perception. But again, I'm not in local room. I don't know the player around. You know what I mean? But I think it's my feeling. It would be that way. Devin, are you agree disagree with the 10-minute overtime?
I like it. I like it. Whether whether it's a viable option in the NHL. If it's a Tuesday night in the middle of February, and get two NHL teams playing, Chicago against San Jose, and are you going to want 10 minutes overtime? Like, I get that there's sort of there's concerns about it that way. I think from the fan perspective, it's obviously better. You'd rather see the game be won in a 3-on-3 overtime than you would in a shootout. So again, I guess overall I would say yes, absolutely. I think that the NHL should have a look at that, because I think winning a game in overtime obviously will always be better than winning in a shootout. However, I do understand that adding another 10 minutes potentially on the end of a hockey game, in an 82 game season, will have its own repercussions and consequences. So, from a fan's perspective, I guess I will say yes, absolutely. But I also understand that from a player's perspective, that it comes with some questions and concerns.
Sir, I'm going to change the question for you.
Okay.
Not because Devin is not good, it's good answer. Would you prefer, Mr.
That's very
Tap?
good.
Would you prefer, Mr. Tap, a 5-minute overtime, but a full 5-minute overtime? And you're going to see how many goals we got on the first 5 minutes over a 10-minute overtime.
I think that's even more undoable because the contract situations. Players have to get on planes right after the game. Sometimes I like the 10-minute, to be honest with you. I like the structure of that. Um, I think it gives the teams better opportunities to sort of um, to sort of bring out their best players for longer periods of time. I just think it'll be an issue with the players union in terms of obviously the amount of time that certain stars are going to be on the ice for. That's my only reservation. But I love it as a fan. Give me more of that. Sure.
I think behind that, right, the NHLP maybe would be disagree with that, right? Because the player they want to protect
Yeah.
the player. But as the entertaining and what the marketing the NHL want to bring on the table, I think the 10-minute overtime is the best thing to do. You want to see the best player on the ice constantly. And I've been honest with you guys when it's about injuries. They don't touch each other during the during the 3 versus 3. You have so many space anyway at the end.
You can't.
Um,
You can't afford it. If you miss a check, the game could be over. 3-on-2 or two on
Look, the
one.
overtime Finland, Sweden. I think
That's right.
BLW will be agree with that. Like it was up and down, and they have a big save on one side. Then it was a turn, a 2 versus 1. It was a bit like a basketball game, right? They come back right away. I think it will be fun to set that. Unfortunately, I'm not sure. And finally, Mr. Devin, I'm going to go with you on that one again because you're going to give us a prediction. This is the only question you have prediction. I did pretty good. USA win all the game.
Not at all. Not at all. I think that the U.S. will beat Sweden I think they'll beat them in overtime, and I think that Canada will beat the U.S. Canada will beat Finland, and then they will beat the U.S. in the tournament final, and the score will be 4-2. So not at all.
You went down right to the final score. That's great, Devin. I would agree. I don't think that U.S. will win all the games. Like I said before, it's still a story that hasn't been completed, and we're going to see different results in the finals.
Absolutely. They won tonight, tomorrow against Sweden, and they're going to win again whoever is going to be in the final. I think the USA are in mission. I predict the final score 5-4 anyway. So I have to stay with that one on this one for sure. And we're not going to do a prediction like put this on the Bible, Mr. Enortap. But Montreal play next week against Ottawa. Only one game. Who's going to win that game?
Yeah. It's an away game. Wow, I got to get my mind back into Montreal mode. What the heck? I'm going to go with Montreal. I think Montreal wins this one. You want to score?
Devin.
I'll say they win as well. I think that Kachuk and Allmark cut off the Four Nations Championship, or whatever we're calling it, will be a factor, and Heineman returning to the lineup will give Montreal a boost, and I think that the Canadians win that game. So I will say 2 points for Montreal.
Yeah, Ottawa went at 5-2. Against Montreal Canadiens because many Montreal Canadiens are on the beach right now. I need
Many
to find
Ottawa
out,
players
Mr.
are
Enortap,
on the
where is Juraj Sakaski? I cannot find him at all. I cannot. I look around Instagram. There are nothing.
Did I
About
mention-
Shane Pinto's at the casino in Las Vegas, betting all his money on football and basketball games.
Here we go.
And did I mention Slavkovsky has a new girlfriend?
I had too many lovers
New one?
inside of that one during the weekend, the Valentine weekend, by the way, and they have too many. Josh Anderson, Papa, Joan Amir, Papa, Brandon Gallagher is married, and she's a great cheese, by the way, Emela, or Emily, or Emma Fortin. Mr. Enortap, I don't know if you saw the picture of Emma Fortin, but the guy is bigger. He's bigger to find some bodyguard because I think she could slip left and right about that. I think there's some kind of rumor inside the locker room, but I'm not going to get there. PW is on this subject, Mr. Enortap. He's going to get us all the subject about the Montreal Canadiens after the dark of the show of the Devin during the weekend. PW is all over the Montreal Canadiens around the downtown in Montreal. And that's all we got tonight. Thanks so much, all the moderators tonight, Mr. Enortap and Devin as the co-host of the show. As we can about the news update, all the people click on the likes. Without all of you, they will be impossible because the only reason this work is because that's who you are.
You are awesome. You are amazing. You are the best. And remember, you have greatness inside of you.
And meanwhile, Reggie come back in Thailand the last couple of days. Reggie is doing well, by the way. But he's doing well. So what we decide to him is to let him with 2 girls at the VIP section at the bar Friday night, the Valentine's Day. And we will expect when we come back to see Reggie at the top dancing on the table. But unfortunately, Reggie was out of the building by... somehow he left with 2 cheese, and we don't know what happening. The only thing we heard from Reggie, he said he got kicked out of the building. So I don't know what happened about that, Mr. Enortap, but it was kicked out of the building. How can you get kicked
Atta
out of
boy,
the building?
Reggie.
So that is the song I'm going to bring to you the next couple of days. We have to figure out about that. So both of you, thanks so much for your participation tonight. Without you, it's impossible. But be wild, be healthy. Find a way not only to donate your day, but find a way to donate the first app of what, Mr. Enortap?
What else? You're 20, 25.
That's it. That's all. We wish you an amazing, great night, both of you. I can wait to see you until the next time for another weekly recap. Have a good night, both of you.
Good night, Coach. Good night, Devin. Good night, Hockey
Thank you,
Nation.
Coach. Thank you, Biter Tap. Okay, have fun shoveling all that snow.
All right, enjoy the snow. Before we leave, guys, we're going to finish at the end of the music. The music is over. Anyway, why not to celebrate the super headshot of rain on the Hockey National Show? $5 a super headshot. Thanks so much on that one. Good night, Nation. Let's do it. Super shot, rain. That's all. It was a super shot at the last minute, so I'm pretty sure that the rain to do this at the end of the show. We have to hype some hype about that. Yeah, Reggie got kicked out of the eyeball, and me, my chief from UK was back in the building last night, so we have a good time. And I played pool last night. Have a really good run. I stood at the table for at least I went for over 1 hour. I'm not a player who play pool. It's just the people was bad to play against me. Just kidding. But it was a good night last night. It was a good time. And I can wait to see you tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock p.m. To watch the Canada versus Finland. I'm going to be back tomorrow night also between USA and Sweden. Between that, I'm going to watching Demidov play at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. Watch the game if you want to. I'll be live somewhere, somehow, to see Demidov. You can follow me on my X account, Coach X. That's it. That's all we got for you, all of you tonight. Thanks for being a part of the show. We want to wish you an amazing, great night. And, of course, an amazing, great week. I'll be right back tomorrow, Monday. We have a show Tuesday, Wednesday. The final is Thursday. We have the Laval Rocket Friday. We have the Montreal Canadiens Saturday. The weekly recap next Sunday. Full week here at the Hockey Nation Show. This is a place to be talking about what? Your Bleu Blanc Rouge. We wish you an amazing great night. Of course, at the end, we're going to introduce the music that way. And I will say to you, Booyah! Good night, everybody. Good night, Luke.